I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From, number 149 with Freda. Um, how are you? I am still dealing with this nerve pain, and it has been a really challenging week. But I think I'm sort of on the upswing, I hope. So I haven't read anything this week because I've been in so much pain that I couldn't focus. And very, very low things. I can't think of the word. Hi, Frida.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I was just saying I've had nerve pain for the past 4 weeks, so
Oh, I'm
I
so sorry.
have been
Ouch.
suffering. Yeah. So I'm wearing this cardigan to cover my lidocaine patches on my arm.
Ouch.
Um, yeah. So it's just no fun. But I'm here with you, and I've managed to do one of these each week because these mean a lot to me and they make me happy. So I've prioritized that, and I can sit for about this long.
Amazing. Well, I'm really glad to see you. I'm really sorry that you've been
Thanks.
suffering, and I hope that this will take your mind off of it for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. And it was fun just thinking about reading your book, and I reviewed what I wrote about it. And I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed your book. I quit everything because enjoyed what you had to say about the different substances or social media and society's reaction to you quitting them. Because I don't drink, and people are always like, they want the full
Yeah.
story, you know?
People get very interested and curious
Yeah,
and sometimes defensive,
yeah,
and yeah, just
yeah,
like a whole array
yeah.
of responses. Yeah, it's
And
fascinating.
I recently saw a comedian talking about how he doesn't drink and how people do that. And he's like, meanwhile, I could say I don't drink water, and people would be like, oh, yeah.
Exactly. It's really true. It doesn't trigger the same kind of emotional
It's like,
response.
oh, who likes water? You know,
Right?
sure. And you're like, I can tell you the whole story, but it's long.
Yeah.
And I think most people's is, oh,
Oh, sorry. My tripod just decided to stop working. Yeah, I'm just going to be my tripod. We're good. It's all good.
that's okay. Sometimes my light turns off. It's just, technology. And
Technology.
I also loved your conversation about maiden, mother, queen. And I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to give a shout out to that because I am, in the pause, and it's like I'm much more comfortable with the idea of being a queen than a crone, because crone is like lady with cane, gray
Yes.
hair, cloak.
Yeah, the connotations are like not great in our culture. We know, which is unfortunate, but it just is what it is. Like I do think we need a
Yeah.
new word. I think it should be a celebrated
Yes.
time of life, and also just like a talked about time of life. Like
Yes.
I think that we're
Yes.
seeing it be like more present in conversation. But for a long time, I felt like no one was talking about menopause, and I just
Yeah.
felt like very alone
Yes.
in it.
And you feel like it's time to disappear, I guess.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that does seem like the pressure, except if you're doing it exceptionally well. Then you're allowed to be in, because my mother is 82 and she's
wow,
active and she looks great and
amazing.
she's like, and so people are very interested or okay with seeing her because
Yeah,
that's something that they're like, oh, okay, well, you're still like doing it correctly, you know?
exactly. Yeah, no,
Um,
if you're like embodying it
yeah,
perfectly,
no
then
pressure, no pressure.
exactly. Yeah, that's right. No pressure.
So I just like, I don't know, I appreciated the conversation and just sort of the whole idea of your book, like, midlife presents a different set of challenges, and there's no shame in the natural set of challenges that are coming our way.
No, yeah, there shouldn't be. There
Yeah.
shouldn't be. And yeah, I definitely like pushed back against that in the book. And thank you so much for connecting with that aspect of it because I do think that it is a book about
Yeah.
addictions and about my process of struggling with my background in intoxication and all these substances. But I think like it's largely a book about midlife.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate your picking up on that and connecting with that.
Yeah. And I was also really touched by your journey with drumming, and feeling like, okay, this isn't, I mean, because I know some other drummers, and I don't think it's an unusual challenge that you went through. Like, it is a physically demanding thing to be doing with your body. And what happens when you can't do it like you used to be able to? And that's something we can all relate to, no matter what it is. We can't do the things we did when we were 20.
Right, right. That's true and real, and it's also okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's part of it. Like we find new things, and new relationships, and I mean, hopefully, it's an evolution.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
hopefully it's an evolution. That's the ideal, and like that's so much of what I wanted to write about in this book is that yeah, I've like done all of these things and had all these experiences in my life, and even though I'm letting some of them go, it's not my life is not over. Like I
right,
thinking about what I want the rest
right.
of my life to be like, and what new things do I want to welcome in.
Yes, agreed. Okay, so that was a really long introduction, but I just wanted to, because my brain is not fully itself because of the pain. I had to make sure that I just like got all that in because otherwise I might just forget entirely.
So
So,
appreciate it.
would you like to read your poem? Because I'm guessing that's what people would like to see and hear.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
Okay, here we go. Where I'm from. I'm from bulk bins, yogurt pretzels, carob covered peanuts, disappointed children. I am from grown up parties, battered guitars, cheap violins, Hank Williams, and John Prine laced with smoke, tobacco, weed, thick, stinging, sweet. I am from blue cornflowers which wilt upon picking and shrivel brown in the vase. I'm from late nights and big breakfasts. From Violet, Jesse, Lewis Edward. I'm from aching backs and the medicines that make pain a pleasure. I'm from you can't always get what you want, and anything boys can do, girls can do better. I'm from tarot cards, magic rocks, all the stuff we don't talk about at school or Farrah's house. Her clean, normal house. No smoke, no carob. I'm from towns with baked in stories. Bloomington, Unionville, Gnawbone, Needmore. I'm from biscuits and gravy. From the night my drunk father punched a guy because he'd never heard of Bob Dylan, and the day my mother was disowned, engaged to a man of the wrong race. All the photos scattered, scant, letters lost. Press what's remembered between pages. Pack the scraps in boxes.
Thank you. That was beautiful. We have some overlap. I feel like, are you from the Midwest?
I am. I'm from
Okay,
southern Indiana, from
Bloomington.
Bloomington,
Yeah,
Indiana,
so
in the area there. What about you?
I grew up in Southern California, so it was a different version of, but like the bulk bins and the carob and the yogurt and the smoke and the tarot cards and
Mm,
the things we don't talk about at school. All of that was really resonant with me, and just the idea that the other people had normal houses, like that. The realization or the dawning that like everybody's life isn't like yours. Um, I just felt that sort of because when you're little, you just think, oh, everyone's like up till 2 in the morning,
right.
like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's kind of uncomfortable when you realize they're not. And you're like, oh, maybe like maybe I'm
Hmm.
weird and
I'm
everyone else
definitely
is
weird.
normal. And yeah,
Oh yeah,
yes.
definitely weird, but masquerading as not weird. Because I
Yeah.
was in Orange County and it was like tennis and yachts and the whole deal. And then yeah, my parents were divorced but lived together. Like so, we were just weird. But oh, the bulk bins. I don't know, just
Bullpen.
like oh god, and carob like still gets me hot. 'Cause just they would tell you that it tasted like chocolate, which is just a lie.
It's a
Um,
lie. It's a lie to kids. And it looks like chocolate and it doesn't taste anything like it.
no, it tastes like dirt or something. I don't even like.
Yeah.
I have such an like a visceral reactions to it still because of so many grown-ups who mostly many of them were high, and they're telling you
Yes, exactly.
what it tastes, and you're like, have you tasted it?
Yeah. No, it's
Because
like dirt, like waxy dirt.
I know the consistency
Mm.
is also
Yes.
terrible. So you try to find a nut, like some nut that's going to make it better or some like something. Yeah. Anyway, it made me think of, it was Mother's Market. That was the place near us that we would go to that just had like supplements,
Yes.
bulk bins. I think of Champion Juicer doing some kind of wheatgrass
Yep.
situation.
That's that for sure. And like organic produce, like sort of like brown,
No.
beat up
Mm-hmm.
produce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just anyway, so I just took me back and tarot cards and runes and just all the things. It was not rock and roll at all like yours. Like there was no guitars or anything. It was very antiseptic comparatively, but it was just interesting how, I mean, those things are very formative for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So we have a lot of overlap there.
we do. And I went to Northwestern. So
Oh,
whenever
cool.
you talk about Northwestern, I'm like, oh, I remember that very cold place.
Yeah, go cats. It's hard on California people for sure.
Especially like, 25 years ago.
Yeah,
Like it was colder. So everyone tells me
it
that
definitely
it's gotten less cold.
was. It
Hmm.
definitely was. And a lot of California people don't have good coats. Like they don't
I
know
did
how to
because
do
I'd
it.
lived in
Good.
Colorado for high school because we did actually cleave my family when I was 14 and we actually
Gotcha.
separated and we went to Colorado. But yeah, yeah. So what was it like for you writing this poem except for making my day? Like for you?
It, it was surprisingly emotional for me.
Hmm.
I mean, for one thing, I don't write poetry,
Hmm.
and that's a bit intimidating to me. I mean, I think of poetry as this form that's just like a little bit out of reach for me, or a little
Right?
bit, yeah, intimidating. But the template was welcoming and supportive and helpful. I felt like it allowed me to step into the process of writing a poem, but also there was space for me to bring my memories. And the first memory that came to me was the bulk bins, like being that 7 or 8 year old kid in Blooming Foods Cooperative
Oh, that makes
Grocery,
sense.
which I love, which is still there, which of
Oh.
course I exclusively shopped at when I was an adult. But as a kid, it's just like, I know everyone else was shopping at the straight, normal, sparkling, colorful grocery
Well,
stores.
because it wasn't a full store. I mean, lots of times
Right.
those places were very sort of niche. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
get all your things there.
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, you could get a lot of like cranked peanut
Cranked
butter.
peanut butter. We totally had the cranked peanut butter. And I just like I really had a memory of like kind of looking at the bulk bins and there's like the chocolate covered peanuts and knowing like I'm not going to get those. Like I'm going to get these carob covered peanuts. And then just other things started to fill in
Mm-hmm. But did
about
you take
about
a chocolate one, Frida? Because I did. I mean, that's the
I can't
joy of the
remember.
bulk bins.
I
It's like
really
you're
want to
trying
say
to,
that just reach your little hand in
no one's
there.
going to notice.
Yeah, no, I did definitely do that.
Oh,
I
for
did definitely do that.
I
Yeah.
100% was, and my father was one of these people. I mean, he didn't go to the store, but he was definitely one of these people who was always trying to get something for free. Like that
Oh
was
yeah.
his personality.
Oh yeah, like the free
Oh
samples and that
man.
kind of stuff.
And
Yeah.
so he saw bulk bins as a buffet,
That's great.
um, and felt no guilt about it.
I love
Which,
that. I love
yeah.
that.
And he was like a lawyer. So it's a very funny like
Amazing.
juxtaposition of this sort of affluence with, but I'm going to steal all the hotel towels that are
That's so
possible
good.
to steal, you know.
Yeah, I totally get
Um,
that.
but Okay, but I didn't
Oh
mean to interrupt, but I just could
yeah, no,
imagine stealing the little chocolate. And I actually preferred the yogurt to the carob. And I
yeah,
felt like yogurt was something that came in a little later because I felt like it was really just carob
it was
for like a
really
long
just carob. Yeah, no, the yogurt came in later, and it was like actually sweet and sort of much more candy-like.
right. It was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
This yogurt covered pretzel. Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I kind of lived with that memory for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was interesting because like some of the things that came up are things that I've written about before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I mean, actually, in I Quit Everything, when in the chapter about sugar,
Mm-hmm.
I write about my mom's kind of hippie-ish diet tendencies, which prevented me from getting Captain Crunch, which made me kind of a sugar fiend, and
Mm-hmm.
made me like really covet the sugary breakfast cereals that some of my friends could eat. So I know I've written about that like a little bit before, and even the anecdote about my father punching someone
Mm-hmm.
because the guy had never heard of Bob Dylan. That's one of my favorite family stories. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
legendary story. And the first short story that I ever wrote and published, I wrote about that. So it was interesting the things that came up that I'd written
Yeah.
about before, but it also kind of got me into some new territory, some of which relates to the novel that I'm working right now, which
Oh.
is about Angela De Angelis. She was a member of the Symbionese Liberation Army
Mm-hmm.
who, if you read a California Story,
Mm-hmm.
you might think, and they very famously kidnapped Patricia Hearst in 1974. But Angela De Angelis, my subject, along with two other members of the SLA, lived in Bloomington, Indiana for
Mm-hmm.
years before they moved to the Bay Area. So part of what I'm doing in this book is kind of excavating what I refer to as old, weird Bloomington,
Mm-hmm.
Bloomington the 70s. I mean, it's no surprise for me to hear that you growing up in California, like health food store and bulk bins and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. But in Bloomington, it was more of an anomaly, but not as much as you'd think. Like in the 70s in Bloomington, there were lots of radicals
Mm-hmm.
and yogis and
Mm-hmm.
Sufis and back to the landers and
Well,
crazy
and
artisans, and many of them are still there, thank God. But it was a weirder place than you might think. When you think of like Indiana, red state, conservative, and I don't know. I'm like wanting to connect to
mm-hmm.
that older, weirder side, which is really where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
so it was cool that in the poem I got to dip into some of what I'm starting to
that
explore
is really cool.
in my novel.
And I think that is sort of I love that because I of course know Bloomington would be weird because it's a university town. And
That's
like when we
right.
were growing up, that was sort of like where you knew you could find because we would go travel lots of road trips. And so like, oh, this is going to be a place where there's going to be some of this because there's a big university here. And when we
Exactly.
left California, we moved to Boulder because that's a very weird place because the University of Colorado is there.
Right.
And I'm thinking even like Maharishi University in Iowa,
Yeah.
like
Right.
um, there wasn't the internet, but there was this awareness of other there is I think in every state the weird place.
Yeah. There's like
There goes my
the
light.
the oasis, the oasis weirdness, the oasis of weirdness. Sorry.
Yeah, and when we thought
Yeah.
about moving from California, it was like we only kind of thought of those
Yeah.
places, because my mom wanted to leave California, and so it was like, okay, but we like we like the freedom of being as strange as we like here. So where do we go where we can also still be that way?
Yeah. Have freaky
Yeah,
culture for sure.
yeah, yeah, and that kind of like there's almost this embarrassment of not being accepting. And we talk a lot about allyship, and it is super important. But it's interesting to me because growing up with my mom, it was like that would be embarrassing or shameful to not be accepting or an ally, like because that's not cool.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
like
That's
that's
not
just
an
not who you're
option.
gonna be.
Yeah.
Yick.
Yeah. That was the same with my upbringing for
Yeah.
sure.
So I'm always like still astounded by people who are like really up in people's business and trying to litigate it. It's like, why do you care so much?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let people be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, relax. Do you have nothing else to worry about? Because I do. I got plenty to worry about.
There's
Um,
plenty to
yeah.
worry about.
Yeah. So, well, I think it's interesting. This is 149, so I've had a few of these
Hmm.
conversations, and it's interesting how many people have that relationship to poetry. Like they think, oh, I don't know, I'm not. And talking to George Ella Lyon, over time, she talks a lot about how poetry is for all of us.
I
And
like that.
yeah, I really wish I'd had a poetry teacher like her because she's just like, yeah, I don't really know why people like she's not that concerned with form. She thinks it can get in the way of you connecting with
Hmm.
where you're writing. Like it's great, learn it, sure, but don't feel like you need to do that to write a poem unless it feels comfortable, like you were saying with the
Yeah.
prompt. Like Annie Finch was saying when she was on here, like that she likes all of those forms because it makes her feel comfortable. Like it's
It's
a
reassuring.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I thought that perspective on it was different too from the poetry class that I actually took at Northwestern University,
Oh.
which completely like I really enjoyed poetry up until that point, and I
Oh.
that experience was so negative. And it's funny because I've had another person who was in that class with me on here, and he had the same
Ah, that's
experience. And
so
I
sad.
know, right? But a lot of people have that experience with writing, but I think specifically with poetry.
I
Like
think
I think that's
specifically
the
with
form.
poetry.
Like it's the most like you're not doing it right.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, it feels like a kind of
Yeah,
pressure that you just and just like a kind of standard that you can't live up to or
right.
something.
As if self-expression has a standard you can't live up
Yeah, I
to.
know, right? It's crazy. No, it really is crazy. Like it's irrational. It
It
really
is,
is.
but I think it's like I mean, you're a teacher, so I'd be interested to see what you would say, but I feel like sometimes it's this like feeling like they need to create something like that in order to teach it, like in order to grade it, in order to monetize it, honestly. As a person who has an MFA, like there had to be this kind of right and wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's
Yeah.
arbitrary,
Yeah.
unfair, ultimately unhelpful.
And it's so
Yeah,
personal. Like
yeah,
the
exactly.
instructor's personal, oftentimes, like sensibilities, what they're
Right. Yeah.
interested in reading or like, because my thing is always like, as a person who gives feedback, is to just try to help the person make the thing they want to make,
Absolutely. That's what I'm all about.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like even if it's something I would never
Yeah.
engage with, that's none of I don't who cares.
It's not
There's
about
tons of
that.
stuff I don't engage with.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's completely like
Yeah,
my philosophy in
I
general.
figured just from your writing, but it's like it's interesting. That certainly was not the case when we were going to college. I
Yeah.
don't think, and I think specifically with poetry. So this has been a real reclamation for me. This whole project of like, poetry is for everyone, but it's been joyful too seeing other people have that experience. And the thing about George Ellis, she's so generous and like lovely, and I think it's joyous for her.
I love
You
that. That's
know,
great. This is really like win, win, win,
yeah,
win,
yeah,
win.
yeah, and she's really modeled for me like that generosity of spirit. Like she's never like, "This is my poem. How dare you?" Like she's like, "Oh my God, Jill Biden did it." Like what? Like Jill Biden teaches it. I guess she told me. I
I
don't.
had no idea. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's what she told me, and I believe her.
Yeah,
So, but I don't have a
I
fact
believe
checker on staff.
her.
And I think I'm happy to be a part of it in a small way. Like,
Yeah, same.
some kind of like, because I feel like, and it's funny talking about your whole maiden mother queen thing. I feel like in this stage of my life, I'm doing so much reclaiming of things that I just let go, because I was scared
Yeah.
or uncomfortable and I didn't want to fight because I didn't have that in me. And so I just was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not a poet. You're right. Okay, I'm not this. That's fine. And me going back and saying, why did I want those things back.
Yeah, it's a good time to
Mm-hmm.
reclaim those things
Yeah.
and just repair some of the
Mm-hmm.
damage that we caused ourselves and in denying these aspects of ourselves. I think that's really
Yeah.
powerful. I think that seems like a
So,
gift of
right?
midlife, a potential gift of midlife.
Yeah, I think it can be. I think especially, I've been working hard at healing for a long time and it's like, okay, I have some like inner reserves.
Yeah.
I'm not just surviving. I have some in me that I can put to use that I didn't when I was younger. I was just trying to like get through.
Yeah. Yeah. Just surviving. And there are different opportunities now,
Yeah.
potentially. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. So, well, any other last thoughts, Frida? This has been a real pleasure. I knew it would be because I had the benefit of reading a book.
Thank you. Oh, it
It
was.
must be funny to have people feel like they know you because of your
Yes.
books.
I write some really personal things in there. And yeah, sometimes I'm surprised in conversation when I realize that somebody already knows this really
Right.
personal.
Right. Oh, your sound went away.
Still
It's
gone?
back. Yeah,
Oh,
now it's back. It just went away for a
okay.
minute.
All right. Well, let's go before some other technical mishap occurs. This has been so much fun. I'm really grateful to you for having me
Thank
on. It was great
you
talking
so
to
much for joining me, Frida. It was a joy. So,
you. My
and thanks
pleasure.
for everyone who joined us. Okay. Bye.
Bye.